Hi, everybody. This is your coach, JDP, and you are excellent. Your excellent is all about providing access to mentoring and coaching to underestimated people from under-resourced zip codes so they can find entry, acceptance, belonging, success, growth, and permanence in the career they're choosing. Today, we have the distinct honor and pleasure to talk to Dr. Sofia Pertuz, who is a workplace culture strategist and consultant. And besides that, she's an ICF-certified executive coach with over 25 years of experience across higher ed, nonprofit, and corporate sectors. There's a lot more to that, and I'll let her get into it. But first, Dr. Sofia, I am honored to have you here today on You Are Excellent.
I love to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. This is awesome.
And so let me get a formality out of the way. May I call you Sofia?
Absolutely. In academic settings, I say Dr. Pertuz because that's part of that culture, but Sofia is perfectly fine.
Thank you very much. Hey, Sofia, for those of my viewers who don't know you, please, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, one thing that I would say is the first thing I want to share is how I have spanned many different worlds. I started out my career in higher education, 25 years, and my last role was Associate Vice President, Dean of Students. I literally lived and worked on many campuses between New York and New Jersey. So I worked with academia, with students, and did a lot of leadership development and just setting up systems to make sure everyone felt support, faculty, staff, and students. Then I shifted over in 2018 to the nonprofit world. I was recruited and became the Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the Jed Foundation, which was actually pretty close to higher ed because they were working on mental health systems and suicide prevention on many college campuses. So instead of setting up support systems for one campus, I worked with many. I've been to 125 campuses in my lifetime. That's between conferences, visiting people, and I live in New York City. So you walk 2 blocks and you've gone to 4 colleges already, right? And then in 2020, I started my own business. I started a Latina Inside Academy, which really had me thinking about how to start really my own business around leadership development for professionals across different sectors and not just in higher ed. Then in 2021, I got a really cool opportunity to work at the Billie Jean King Enterprises, which is a for-profit. Many people don't realize that Ilana Kloss, the CEO, and Billie Jean King, the tennis champion and icon, have their own business with investing in women's sports and doing advisory work, representation of athletes, and many, many other things. But I worked for them for 3 years, and I recently left to really fully launch. Even though I started my business in 2020, I fully am launching now into my full power, and I'm just excited to do some of the things that I've been wanting to do, and I've done them, but just not in the full capacity that I've been able to step into at this point.
Okay, so first and foremost, you go girl. This resume,
there's
is
so many
amazing.
details I left out, but LinkedIn is always there with all. You can think of everything. But I'm the founder of Mainstream Insight LLC, that does development, advisory, and inclusion work and executive coaching.
So let's start there, because I remember when we talked, I think a week or so ago, you said to me, you're like, "Hey, JDP, you know what? After 30 years, flying sola." So this is exciting. So for everybody who wants to learn more, all of these details and links and everything else, Sofia's socials, will be in the description below. So fear not, we got you covered. But Sofia, tell us a little bit tell us a lot. Tell us about your new endeavor.
Well, yeah, you're right. After 30 years of working for one organization or another, or several even at the same time, I've done so many interesting jobs. This is the first time that my boss is me. So if I'm being overworked or I have any, days when I'm feeling kind of stressed, I'm like, that's you. You need to have a better boss or figure out how to, be better to yourself. So this is the first time, and I'm excited because I've been wanting to do this for a really long time, but sometimes we just don't know how we get there, right? So it just took some time to do some soul searching and good money management, good savings, and just putting yourself in a good position to be able to bet on yourself and say, I have enough networks and skill sets to use across different aspects of business, opportunities.
So this was a considered change in your life. Tell me, what is your area of focus, and what do you hope to accomplish through this venture?
If I had to boil it all down, and I took some time to really think about this, I would say something I've been doing my whole career is building bridges, helping people navigate transition and change and move from one, I guess, milestone to the next. So I would say higher ed is one of the biggest, clearest ways to look at milestones. Obviously, you're taking credits. There's semesters. I still think in semesters, by the way. Like I always, fall, spring, summer. I would say that I'm a leadership development coach and transition coach. So I help people think about, what do I need to do now to get to what I want tomorrow and the next day and then 10 years from now. And sometimes we get so wrapped up in our day to day that we don't stop to think, how am I managing my career, and really thinking about how I navigate space, how I network with other people, and what are the professional development opportunities I take advantage of, or I don't. Like, some people I know don't invest in themselves, don't go to conferences, don't go to networking events because maybe they cost money, or they're like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it. And it's like, well, you can't afford not to. So that's my focus. My focus is to help each person realize, what do they need to do to invest in themselves to be the person they want to be tomorrow.
We're talking milestones in an academic framework, right?
Yes.
And we're also talking about investing in self. So there's so much there.
Absolutely.
Where would you like to start?
Well, I'd like to start with what's in your life, right? Like, what are the support systems? And one thing I didn't share about who I am and what I'm about is, I've been married 23 years, and that's a really strong support system, making sure that you have a partner in your life that is really has your back, has your support, and really helps you with everything you have going on. I'm also a mom of two. One turned 21 today, and another one is 16. So they're both junior in college, junior in high school. So just thinking about, what's your first original support system? And then after that, what are the things you need to do to link up with other people who are like-minded, or at least they don't have to be exactly like-minded. They just need to be goal-oriented and supportive and affirming to you. So I think that's one way to start, thinking about who's around you. Who do you surround yourself with that has your back and can help you move to whatever it is you're trying to do?
Where do coaches and mentors fit in this picture?
Maybe I'll tell you the first time I hired a coach. That's like a really life-changing story and transformative story, but that's the first time I realized that I was in my own way. So my dissertation topic was about Latinas in mid-level and how race, ethnicity, and gender impacted their career trajectory. So I was doing a little bit of research. I was kind of in the middle of my career. I would say I was 10, 12 years in, and I was looking around, and I was working in academia. And I worked at predominantly white institutions, or historically white institutions, where I was one of the very few. Especially as I moved up, I was one of the few Latinas that were in the positions that I was in. I just started getting frustrated because I saw people around me get promoted, get moved up, get given opportunities that I just wasn't. So I said, what's going on? I need to figure this out. So I did it because I was in academia. I studied it. So that's the first thing I was doing. And while I was studying it, I was getting kind of frustrated about my situation. So I was working at one institution, and I was doing so much. I was running all these committees. I was doing more than just my job, way more. And I went to my supervisor at the time, and she was like, well, I said, at this point, can we look at my job description? Can we look at my title? Can we look at my money and my compensation and figure out how we can make it match better what I'm doing? I'm doing a lot across any different departments and pretty wide. And she looked at me and she said, Sofia, I know you aspire to do great things, but as a woman and a mother, you should appreciate that I give you the flexibility to do what you need to do with your schedule, to take care of your kids and do what flex if you need to. I was so devastated. And then the other part was like, well, we don't have any money in the budget. I'll take a look. I don't know. And no, the title doesn't fit. You're this title, so we can't give you the next title. And I'm like, every possible reason not to give me the recognition, whether it's financially or verbally or even in title. I think back, and if she had thrown a couple of dollars at me, I would have been like, oh, great, I feel recognized now. She changed the title just slightly. That's when I cared so much about titles. After that, I said, okay, I got to do something else. Something is missing in the way that I'm either representing myself or advocating for myself, or maybe I need to go. Because that's what happens. Sometimes to move up, you need to move out. So I hired a coach, and she was phenomenal. Her name was Bonnie, and she just helped me see all the things that I was doing. And her big questions were, do you need to do your work there? What's your mission in life? What are your values? What do you want to do? And she helped me see, I don't have to stay. Like if I'm not being, honored here, and there's that expression, if respect is no longer being served, leave the table. And it was a moment where I was like, okay, I don't want to leave. I was so used to it. There's my loyalty as a Latina. I'm always so loyal to my employees. They were being good to me. My employers, they were good to me. So it wasn't like they were being mean. It was just like not giving me the advancement, even though I'm seeing other people get it. So by the next year, she helped build up my confidence, my resume, and my way of presenting my work. And a year later, not only did I get a promotion, a new job, a new title, it was a higher title than my boss at the time. And it was double my salary at the time. So I had no idea that was available to me. Just none. It was just an eye-opening moment that from that point on, I said, I'm never taking less. I'm always going to ask for what I deserve. And if that place is not giving it to me, then you have to make that hard decision and move on. So the way that coaches and mentors are, the mentor shows you what to do in your job. Like actually that supervisor at the time, she was a good mentor. She really gave me a lot of opportunities to do a lot more than just my job. So she saw my restlessness and my ability to do more. She gave me more to do. So that's mentorship. However, the coach is who told me, you deserve more, you'll go get it. And this is how we're going to figure out how to position you that way. So there's people that I'm thankful for the moment, but I'm also, and for her and her leadership and mentorship, but I'm thankful to my coach for helping me see that I deserve more and I can get it.
Sofia, this channel is dedicated to underestimated people from under-resourced zip codes. You shared your story with me, and I'm wondering if you could take us down that, give us that view, because there's a couple of things that as I did my research on you that we actually have in common.
We probably
You're
do.
a graduate of Cathedral High School.
I am.
And my mother is a graduate of Cathedral High School.
What? Oh my goodness. That is so awesome.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, back in 1950 something, they had their high school commencement at St. Tractor's Cathedral, and my mother has a picture of it. And actually, in the picture in the crowd, you can see my mom. It's really cool.
That is really cool. Okay, I got to see this picture. Oh yeah, there's a Connections Cathedral, but I'll go further back than that. So I was born in Dominican Republic. I was brought here when I was a baby. I was barely a year old, and I grew up in the projects. And I used to share that pretty freely until somebody was like, "Oh, you probably shouldn't tell people that." I'm like, I am so proud to live where I lived and grow up where I grew up. And I grew up in the Bronx in Highbridge. And earlier I went to public school, and then in the middle of my 6th grade, or at least when I was about to get to 6th grade, my mom had the opportunity to make a deal with the pastor at our church, Sacred Heart, and said, I have 5 kids. I want them to go to Catholic school because I know that they're going to get a really good education, but we don't have any money. And I remembered my mom making a deal with the priest and said, I will cook at the homeless shelter Wednesdays and Saturdays, and if you can help me make the tuition lower. And he said yes. So all of us, 4 of us, one of my sisters were already going to high school, so it was already she was already on her path, but the 4 of us went to the Catholic school, and we couldn't even tell anybody how much we paid for tuition. I had to hide my envelope because it was definitely not as much as what everybody paid. So we had that opportunity, and I thought I was so smart, and I went to public school, and when I switched over to Catholic school, I was not doing well. Suddenly, it was really challenging, and I realized, wow, the level of education, somehow my mom figured this out. She didn't even finish 5th grade, and she knew she needed to figure out how to put us in a good path. So went to Catholic school there, then I went to Cathedral High School, all girls Catholic school. I went from the Bronx to Manhattan every day. And when I think about that commute, I'm like, that was like insane.
That's insane.
I know. We used to leave so early in the morning, but I loved it. And it was a great moment of realizing that what leadership could look like. It was all women. So everyone was a leader. And there was no conflict around gender and who's in charge and who wasn't. It was like, no, all of us are doing what we can. And it was building us up as women in the world that were going to be leaders. It was not even a question. And at the time, since we were in Manhattan, I was able to get jobs after school that were, now that I think about it, pretty lucrative. I worked at a law firm for years. Wilson, Osa, Moskowitz, Edelman, and Dicker. I used to do that report in the summer. I know. So, and at the time, I think of it now, that was 1988, 89, 90, 91. I was making $10 an hour back then. When I think about that now, I'm just like in awe of that. But anyway, then I went to SUNY New Paltz for undergrad and fell into, I loved it there too. A little girl from the Bronx up in, upstate New York. Some people are like, that's not that far upstate, but it's a good hour and a half. So that's far enough for me. And I had a great experience there. I learned a lot about myself. I was a leader from early on. I was a resident assistant, and had a whole floor and a building of other students that I was supposed to be their like support system and any emergency management. So that started early in my life. Then from there, I said, what am I going to do next? I really enjoyed working with my hall director. And I said, well, can I be you? Can I be in your position? She's like, yeah, but you got to go to grad school. I was like, sign me up. Okay. I don't know what that's about, but I'll do it. So I ended up going to Seton Hall, being an assistant hall director. And from there, that's how my undergrad career move forward, and then grad, and then
okay. So you bring in Seton Hall. This is the second thing that we have in common. My eldest daughter got her undergrad at Seton Hall.
Oh, I call that my home away from home. I mean, I spent years there. First as a grad assistant, I lived on campus. Then again, I went to Ramapo College to be a hall director. Then I came back to Seton Hall for a promotion. It was the opposite. This woman who's amazing was a mentor to me and called me and said, I have an assistant director position. I don't know if you're ready to leave your RD job, but if you're interested, I would love for you to apply. It was the first time someone like tapped me and said, I saw something in you as a grad assistant that I think could be really helpful for us as for this advanced role. So that was pretty cool.
So this is the third thing that we have in common, because Ramapo is just like 10 minutes away from me. And I actually got a graduate certificate in project management at Ramapo College.
I loved Ramapo. Like everywhere I went, and I'm one of those people, I get really attached. So like Seton Hall, I love it. It's my home. And then Ramapo College, it was one of the best entry-level experiences you could ever have. The dean of students and the vice president of student affairs there were just so affirming and just supportive, like really supportive. So I was really lucky to be early in my career to have that in my to have these women, white women, by the way, who saw something in me and really helped move me forward in my career. It wasn't until later in my mid-career that I started realizing, like, oh, wait, I'm being treated differently because of my color, race, and background.
Yours is a fascinating story, and it all starts with your mom.
Yes.
Barely fifth grade education, immigrated to the States from Dominican Republic.
Yep.
5 kids, started you on this journey by way of saying, let me do what I need to do for the betterment of my kids.
Absolutely.
You had this legendary journey in academia and life experience. From our perspective as people of color, sometimes we see the obstacles that are put in front of us and have questioned whether we can get over them or not. And sometimes they seem insurmountable. What advice do you have for those who are in their careers now or just starting that you can provide?
I guess the best advice I can give, and yeah, you're right, my mom was amazing, and my dad too. My dad was a good influence, great influence on us. He was there, but he was an alcoholic, so there were moments he wasn't there. But my mom was like the pillar of our household for a really long time. But my advice would be, take as many opportunities to not just talk about how good you are or what skills you have, but demonstrate them. And I think the reason why early in my career, I had that call of, hey, can you come back? And I have this position is because I volunteered to help out with some of those things for that same position. I didn't know that I was doing it for my future. I was just like, oh, I want to learn. I was eager to learn and help each other out. And it was just a moment of knowing that like, if I try different things, I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I'm still doing that now.
So it wasn't right. So it wasn't transactional the way you looked at it. You were genuinely curious, like, oh my God, this is happening. Yeah, I want to
And
learn.
yeah,
And and what you were doing, unbeknownst to you, you were planting seeds.
absolutely. So I was very curious, but I was also very helpful. So some of it was
Mm.
the curiosity. So stay curious. And the other advice I have is nothing is beneath you. Try to remove that mentality of if there are things they're asking of you and you are trying to figure out like, well, that's not my job. I'm not supposed to do that. Like when I worked at the law firm, one summer somebody had to take a leave and I was a file clerk. So I was the, kid behind the scenes in the conference rooms organizing all these depositions and all these discovery and all this stuff. Like I learned a lot. And that's how I figured out I didn't want to go to law school, by the way. I don't know if I wanted to be around all this paperwork all the time. But I ended up realizing that even that was a learning experience for me, filing and putting things in order. I loved it. And I did it so well that some of the partners would wait for me to come. They're like, I was in college and during summer, they were like, oh, when is Sofia coming back? Because she's the only one that knows how to organize it the way I like it. So they asked me to be on the switchboard one summer. And I'm like, I have a list. I can't do that. How am I supposed to say that name? And this woman took me under her wing and she was like, we're going to practice. Don't worry about your list. That's why I can say, Wilson Elsa Moskowitz, Edelman and Ticker. I got
That's
it. So
awesome.
nothing. So I could have been like, oh, well, I'm not going to do switchboard. I want to do like more high, responsibility stuff. And it's like, no, nothing is more important at that time. Now they don't probably even have a switchboard. But at the time, I was willing to try and do different things just to see how it goes.
So, they say that luck is the intersection between the preparedness and opportunity.
Yes.
Would you say that you were lucky?
I say I make luck. And I do a lot.
Ooh, I like it.
I do a lot of preparing when I don't even realize I am preparing. Like there have been moments in my career that I had already done something that got me to something else. So for example, early in my career, I was on call. I dealt with a lot of emergencies, speaking with people about really tragic stuff. And then later on, I was doing diversity, equity, inclusion work on several campuses where the main focus was bridging people together, getting people to talk with each other that normally wouldn't, doing programming. Then so I brought all those things. There was one position that I loved, the toughest job I'll ever love. I was the dean of students, like I said, at Hofstra. And all those different experiences, the emergency management, being on call, helping people, but really thinking systems wide thinking about how to set things up. That's what I think helped me be successful in that role. I even won an award of like Dean of the Year or something one year. I don't remember what year it was. But I'm trying to remember what your question was, but all those things brought me to the next thing. So like right now, being a coach, I never thought I'd be a coach. If you asked me 7 years ago, even 6 years ago, Sofia, are you going to do executive coaching? I'm like, what, sit with people one-on-one all day long? I like people, like big groups of people. Like I thrive when there's 1,000 people in the room. Like I know most people don't want to do that, but I'm the opposite. I love speaking in front of big groups. So when I thought about one-on-one, I was like, I don't know about this. But then when I started doing it as part of the program that I mentioned before, the Latina Insight Academy, it was so cool to see that one-on-one interaction turn into actions from their end and turn into a better life for them. And I was like, I'm hooked. Like, and to really think about how do you let each person lead their own path? It's in higher ed, you're giving a lot of advice. There's advising. You're always telling people what to do. So that's why I got the certification, because I was like, okay, I need to be a better listener and stop and think about how do I let each person be their own amazing, transformative, thing for themselves. So that's why I ended up getting the certification and learning how to listen. Maybe I'm not doing that today, but you're interviewing me, so I guess I can talk. But just really helping everyone. So I never knew that the culmination of my whole career and knowing when to kind of step in and think about when do they need a little more perspective or a question that really gets them thinking, or when does someone just need to kind of have a witness to their path making.
This is really fascinating because we all have our coaching journey and what brings us to coaching. For me, it was my own career, coming from a disadvantaged beginnings, single mom, 5 kids, by way of Puerto Rico. And then having, overcome obstacles and barriers and learning disabilities and what have you, to get to the point where I look back and saw people of similar backgrounds running into similar obstacles. And me at first mentoring, and then in the later stages of my career, coaching, helping to get my mentees' heads out of the weeds and to think a little bit more strategically. What is important to me is providing access to people of like backgrounds, because these are people in our lives, professionally, mentors, coaches, that we don't necessarily have access to on a regular basis.
Exactly. Yeah. I think there's so many of us who there's that expression, you can't be what you can't be what you can't see.
Mm.
And growing up in my neighborhood, I grew up in the Bronx, and I was Dominican. I am Dominican still, but everyone who was Dominican was in Washington Heights, but we were across the bridge in the Bronx in High Bridge, and everyone around me was African American, Black, and Puerto Rican. So
Hey.
we were very unique in that way. But one thing that I observed was anyone in charge or in positions of power were the white police officers, the firefighters, even the clergy were all white. And the teachers were mostly white not in the public schools, but in the Catholic schools. So I remember looking around and going, well, how do we figure out what's next for us? Like, I just found out, speaking of cathedral, I ended up meeting her a couple of years ago, but Ursula Burns, who was the CEO at Xerox, went to cathedral.
Oh, wow.
And I was thinking, if I had known that earlier in my career and my life, maybe I would have aspired differently earlier in my career. Like, it was amazing that a Black woman who grew up in the projects, her book is amazing, by the way. Where you are is not who you are. She tells that story of the humble beginnings.
I'll include that in the description.
Oh, a must read. The other one is Sotomayor's book, Sonia Sotomayor. I got to meet her too, and her story is amazing. Her memoir is a leadership book. Both books, they're memoirs, but they're leadership books that show you the adversity and overcoming. Like, you can dwell on, I didn't have this, I didn't have that, but at the time, I didn't know what I didn't have. I didn't know what I didn't have access to until later, when I started working for more affluent higher education institutions and realizing, like, wow, these students are driving better cars than me. Like, they're getting them for graduation, like from high school. I had to do everything on my own. I'm totally first gen on almost everything: school, work, career, leadership.
Flash forward, you obviously at some point had an image or developed an image, a goal. How important is a goal setting? How important was that for you?
You know, interestingly, I wish I was more intentional about my career and do like serious goal setting. Like, I realized a few years ago, I wanted to set a goal as to how I want to feel more than exactly what I thought it was going to look like to like work for myself and have my own business. I wanted to feel the freedom. I wanted to feel like I can work with and do the things that I want to do day to day. So I think goal setting is really important. And I wish someone had, if you ask the question, what would you tell your younger self? I would say I would set more concrete goals and really do more vision. I love doing vision boards, doing visioning, because I believe in manifesting and writing down, what do you see? What do you want to see in a year, in 2 years, 5? And even if you don't know specifically what it is, more like, how do you want to feel? How successful do you want to be? Because I think that goal setting puts something in your mind that makes you get motivated each day to do what you have to do to get there. So I hadn't done that really early in my career. I kind of just fell into student affairs, fell into the next job, got tapped for the next one. And then 10 years in, I was like, okay, now I really have to drive my career. And it wasn't too late, obviously, but I definitely wish I had done some goal setting earlier. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I want to just interject here, because in my own case, I was 61 years old when I pivoted.
Wow.
I'm 63 now. So
all right.
It's not never too late. It's a matter of how you think of things. And in my view, it's an all or nothing. There is no plan B.
Wow. Okay. I never
Yeah,
thought that way.
yeah. I'm like, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. There is no plan B. There is no going back. I'm
Wow.
not talking, I'm talking metaphorically, of course, but
Yeah, yeah,
there
yeah.
are things that you bring forward with you, relationships, your network, your experience, your knowledge. But in terms of what I want to be doing, yeah, there is no plan B. Yeah, go forward and don't look back.
That's such an interesting way to think about it. But I want to go back to the goal thing because I'm gonna contradict myself for a second.
Okay.
Um, it's good to set goals, but I think sometimes if your goals are really lofty or that's just not supposed to be your path, then
Mm,
you could get really disappointed very quickly. Like I went through a grieving process leaving higher ed a little bit because my dream was I'm doing the whole thing. I'm doing the path. I'm an associate vice president now. So my next path, I'm going to be vice president. And then after that, I may even want to be president, even though my was asking for years. Why? Tú no eres presidenta ya. You're not president yet. I'm like, that's not how it works, mom. They don't just hand out presidencies like that. Try telling my little Dominican mother from the campo. It was really funny the way she thought. But don't you have a doctorate now? Anyway, so I thought that was my path. So my goal was to become a college president. My
mm,
goal next was to be a vice president. But when I got this opportunity outside of academia that brought me into the nonprofit world and kind of outside of academia for the first time, it was a moment of like, but I have a goal. But I have a goal. If I had just stuck with that, I would have missed out on so many pivots that I've
mm.
made since. I would say I'm like the pivot queen. I went from academia and even different campuses, different roles, different kinds of roles, supervising people, not doing revenue work, not. While you have the goal, it's also like being open to a pivot. Maybe something else is comes your way that you didn't even see and you didn't realize.
How important is it to keep yourself interested and excited about what you're doing?
Hey, John, I have this great quote. Paulo Coelho says, if you think adventure is dangerous, try routine. It's lethal. So I think
Wow.
it's really important to stay curious, engaged, and think about, even though something makes you scared, you go, this is exciting. There's something really cool about this, and I will figure it out. I remember, last year I had the opportunity to work with the NFL, and it was to do training for all their DEI leads from all the 32 clubs. And at first I was like, okay, this is quite the project. Like, it's going to be pretty cool though. And I just kept the energy as curious as possible and excited and said, I can always collect data. I'm a data person. So collect data. What do we need? What do you need to do? And I approach pretty much every situation like that. I say, okay, I'm about to do something new I've never done before. I'm scared. However, there's other people who've done this, and I know that I can figure it out because not everyone was born whatever. Like even CEOs of major big companies, they weren't born a CEO. They got their, and I found out that so many senior leaders in major companies have coaches, back to the coaching thing, who help transition them in. The company pays for it to make sure they're their best possible selves. So staying excited and engaged, that also means staying ready, but staying prepared, getting prepared and
Getting
getting
prepared.
help and pulling together whatever you need to make it happen for yourself.
So preparedness comes in a number of different flavors. It is investment in self. It is finding a mentor, investing in a coach. It is seeking out new and interesting opportunities to learn. It takes on a number of different flavors, but the bottom line is as my mother would say, si no estás haciendo nada, haz algo.
Oh,
If you
yeah. Try sitting and going. I used to say when I was little, estoy cansada de no hacer nada. I'm tired of doing nothing. Because, those bored summer months or whatever. And my mother would be like, oh, yeah? Coge una escoba. Like, here, you're going to sweep? Oh, I'll find something. There's some pots and pans that need cleaning. Like, there's always
yeah,
something to do.
my mother be like, "Oh, you got nothing to do? Here, you can mop the floor, clean the
Oh,
toilet, do this, do
exactly.
that. Oh, now there's plenty to do."
Exactly. So rest right now, like to take a rest yesterday, I had a pretty full day. I had some things that I was working on. Again, I'm my boss. So I get to tell myself when I'm done for the day or not. And that's the thing. So there was a moment where I was like, I'm just so tired. I say, you know what? I don't have an appointment till 5. And it was like 2. I'm like, I'm taking a nap. And I took a nap. I have never taken a nap in the middle of the day unless I was sick, like really sick. So it was like pretty cool. I was like, if my mother was here, may she rest in peace, she'd be like, tú no tienes nada mejor que hacer. You don't have something better to do than take a nap in the middle of the day. So I'm trying not to channel her in that way. Like, I'm just like, nope,
Yeah, I
my
hear
body said it needed rest.
you.
And guess what? I woke up an hour later feeling so refreshed and ready for the next, few tasks I needed to get to.
See, what entrepreneurship brings is that you have mastery over one thing, your time.
Yes.
And Sophia, you said that I am my toughest boss, right?
Yep.
Referring to yourself
Oh,
as
yeah.
as
Oh, yeah.
boss.
No one
But
has
you
held me
know
to higher
who
standards than me.
is your toughest boss? Is your clients.
That is true.
You know?
That is true.
So yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but I just want to throw that out there.
That
Hey,
is true.
Sophia, how are we doing? Are you enjoying the conversation? Is this what you expected?
Oh yeah, this is so great. I never, it's not that often we take the time to stop and reflect on what got us to where we are doing right now. I mean, the
Yeah, and
secret to life is just making sure you put some high goals out there, but also manage expectations to make sure that you're doing what you got to do.
yeah. So sometimes I find that with some of my clients, again, they're very young and early career, set goals. But there's an old saying: a goal without action is just a dream,
That is true.
right? So how do we inspire ourselves to find that action? How do we even move forward? Because goals can be pretty big. I mean,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. Some goals, yes, they're lofty, but if that's what I really truly want, there it is. Now what?
I heard somebody say something about a BHAG. They were doing in the company that she was working for, the big, hairy, audacious goal. What's the big picture you're trying to do? I would say write it down. Back to the vision board and giving yourself some reflection time to sit down and write down, what do you think it would look like? Who do you need to make it happen? How much is it going to cost to get there? And what kind of education, background, certifications? I have so many, and it's kind of ridiculous at this point, but it's because I always think, like, if I need to do that, then I might need to learn about this. And the way to learn it is to do this class or engage with other people who are already doing it.
So I love what you just said, because in essence, what you're saying is break it down.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the goal, right? Okay, so let's figure out the steps we need to take to get there. So you take this big, hairy, audacious thing, the BHAG,
Yes.
and then you break it down into more consumable chunks, meaning obtainable
Doable.
chunks.
Exactly. You also have to decide that that's the priority. So it took me over a decade to finish my dissertation and get my PhD. Forever.
Wow.
It took a long time, longer than I wanted. I wrote 3 different topics. Thank goodness that at Seton Hall, I love Seton Hall. My faculty there was so patient and were really supportive. But one day I woke up and said, I need to finish this. When do I want to finish? And it wasn't until I wrote down when. It was like, oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Then I said, nope, 2017, I'm going to defend. I defended on 27 de febrero, 2017, the Independence Day for Dominican Republic. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I looked at the calendar, and it was 3 years between collecting the data and writing up the final dissertation. 3 years, that's a long time, right? But time has to pass anyway. So I looked at the calendar and said, and I was the dean of students at the time, being on call 24/7, going to events, nights and weekends. So I decided I can wait on sleep a little bit. I would wake up, go to bed, at hopefully reasonably midnight or whatever, and wake up at 4 and said, I'm going to write from 4 to 7. And then at 7, I'm going to start my day. So I
let's not forget, you got kids and everything else. You got a household to manage. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Again, that's why I gave a shout out to my partner, because I wouldn't have been able to do that without him, honestly, Antonio. So I was looking at the calendar and I would just block off time. Here's what I'm doing. I'm waking up at this time, that I'm going to say no to things. I can't go to that event or that event because I'm going to do this. So once I set my mind to it, it was amazing how I suddenly had a path and a plan. The other thing I did, I created a writing group. I have a Facebook group called Latinas Completing Doctor Degrees that has like 9,000 people in it. I started it 11 years ago. Just because I said, oh, maybe like 20 of us or something could help each other out while we're working on our dissertations and doing our final, exams and all that stuff in our PhD programs. And it grew so fast over the years because I think people realize like you don't get support everywhere. And sometimes our families don't understand what that journey is about. But I also, with that group, created sub-writing groups. And I had a group that would meet every Saturday. We called ourselves Grupo Cinco. I made like 10 groups that summer. And Grupo Cinco would meet every Saturday and we held each other accountable. We texted each other all the time. Like, where are you? What are you doing? What's your plan? How many pages are you going to write by next week? We all finished within a year of each other.
Wow.
So it's the goal, but it's the plan, the support system, and the actual just getting it done, doing the work.
What I'm taking, and I got the ñañaras already. So what you're saying is you can go at it, but you don't have to go at it alone. The obstacles may seem insurmountable, but when you break them down into constituent parts with the supportive community, family, friends, social groups, online, that these things become more real. The feeling that you can achieve becomes more real, and that achievement then manifests in reality.
Yes, and I
love this.
There's something about when your own community has your back around that. It feels that much more powerful. It's like we're 1%. 1% of doctorates are Latinas.
Wow.
We got to do this together and lift each other up, because if we're not, who's going to do it for us? Obviously, it's not happening any other way.
Sofia, I have asked you a number of different questions that got into who you are, but I have formulated a questionnaire that will probe the depths of who Dr. Sofia Pertuz is.
Okay.
Dr. Sofia, are you open to taking the URXcellent Get to Know a Coach questionnaire?
Absolutely. I said I'm a risk taker, so go for it.
Okay, guys, here is the Get to Know a Coach questionnaire with Dr. Sofia. First question, favorite sport?
Soccer. Women's soccer. I've been to many women's soccer games this year, and I never knew how much I loved it.
Oh, it's awesome. The women's side in the U.S. soccer is phenomenal. Did you get to see them in the world of the Olympics?
No, I mean, I saw the game, of course. Yeah.
The game.
I go to the NY Gotham games at the Red Bull Arena, so I love watching them, and they're just amazing.
Yeah. So
but the
women's
ones that
athletics
play is pickleball.
Oh, pickleball.
Yes, I finally learned how to play pickleball. So that's the one. If I were to play, soccer would not be my game because I would be terrible at it. But pickleball, I'm okay.
Okay, pickleball and soccer. All right. So next question: cats, dogs, or exotic animal?
I'd have to say cats. I've had many cats over my lifetime. Sol, Luna, Cielo, Apache. Right now we have Jasper and Jupiter, who just hate each other. It's fun to watch them fight. So cats.
Okay, cats.
Yeah.
Next question: mountains or ocean/beach?
Ocean/beach. I'm Caribbean. If I said something else, I would get my Dominican nationality taken away from me.
They could take your card back.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question. And this one is regardless of genre, regardless of medium. It could be letters, it could be recorded music, it could be, astrophysics, what have you.
Okay.
Favorite artist?
Oh, that's easy. George Michael.
George Michael?
Yes.
All right.
When I am feeling down, like George Michael got me through high school. All the music, all the things, and he passed away December 25, 2016. I remembered it well because 2016, as you know, was just one of those years that you were just like, this year is trash. And then he died, and I was at the movies, and I'm sitting there bawling, and my partner and my kids are looking at me and like, what happened? I'm like, George Michael died, and I just can't. I'm not going to hear any more new music. I just feel so devastated. But yes, George Michael.
Well, he left a grand legacy with his music. So
absolutely.
All right. And final question. And now this one, I'm always surprised at the answers that I get on this one. Favorite food
Oh boy.
or cuisine?
Favorite food or cuisine? I'm gonna have to say Chinese food, and I have an explanation. I've been to many. Whenever I travel, I always try to find the nearest Chinese food. Like I went to Sevilla in November, and I was like, I have to find a Chinese place. Oh, my favorite Chinese food of all time. And I know it's fake and it's not real. I get it. I haven't even been to China, so when I have real Chinese food, it's gonna be interesting. But in Malaga, Spain, was the best Chinese food I ever had. Everywhere I live, I make sure to find like what's our go-to place. And once I find that, I feel like I'm home. I've moved a lot. So once I find my place, so Chinese food, but Dominican food is my go-to, obviously, because I know how to cook it. So,
Sofia, thank you so much for being here with us on URXcellent today. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. You are absolute delight. Before we go, do you have any words of advice, practical advice for our audience?
I would say my practical advice would be to believe in yourself and bet on yourself and create networks of support for yourself in all aspects of your life so that you never feel like you're alone. There's always a way. I'm really big on, mental health, well-being, but I think whether it's your personal life, your career, your social life, make sure that you have a network of support for yourself.
Awesome. Dr. Sofia Pertuz, thank you so much for being with us on URXcellent.
Thank you. This is great. I really enjoyed this.
Guys, this is your coach JDP, letting you know that all of Dr. Sofia's socials and contact will be in the description. Please give us a like and subscribe. Again, Sofia, thank you very much. And this is your coach JDP reminding you that you are excellent. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, JDP. This was awesome.